Hello, everyone. Welcome to what we have come to dub the Hyperdrive Hour. My name is Justice. I figure I'll introduce myself first, explain what's going on. I'm a college student, almost done, going for art, and I'm here to talk about Star Wars. So, what I'll do is I'll let everybody else introduce themselves, and then we'll just launch into a few topics pertaining to favorite movie, favorite show, favorite arc in a show, and favorite character. Just as an introduction, for the first episode, keep things simple and let you get to know us. That means Donovan is first now. Go.
All right. Hello, I'm Donovan. Preferred pronouns are they, them. I am a college student going for management information systems, and I'm looking forward to talking about some of the Legends-esque stuff in Star Wars and some of the Force stuff that interests me.
Marin,
Uh,
you are next.
Howdy, my name is Marin, also known as Sick Doctor Art on all socials. I am a college student studying visualization, which is like art, animation, game design, and UI UX. And I like clones and Mandoa and Mandalorians a lot, so expect me to gush about those things a lot. Um, and I'm excited to talk about Star Wars.
Sonata, you round us out.
Hello, you can call me Sonata. I am the only individual in this group who didn't fall into the scam of higher education. I look
Boo.
forward to discussing this franchise with not only these people, but hopefully those of you who tune in to listen.
Yeah, thank you all for being here. And now, I suppose, without any further ado, as the cliche is, we'll start. We'll start with favorite movie, and I think we'll just go down or I guess through the alphabetical order, starting with Donovan again. You're the top. You're gonna get you're gonna get first a lot. I'm sorry in
Yeah,
advance. But
fair
yes,
enough, I suppose.
favorite Star Wars movie. Give us a rundown on why. We'll talk about it. We'll move on to the next person.
Uh, my favorite movie is Rogue One. Uh, I like it a lot because it doesn't follow a lot of the normal Star Wars tropes and formats that happen within the mainline 9 movies. It's legitimately kind of a dark movie. We're seeing, like, the first scene is the main character just executing someone who just can't escape the stormtroopers to protect in order to protect himself. Um, it's not, it doesn't feel like, it feels like it's in Star Wars, but it doesn't feel like a Star Wars movie in a good way. It's a lot more grounded. It feels like if we're looking at from the perspective of just the average person, not these big, hero Force users. On top of that, uh, it's a the movie itself is a Pyrrhic victory. The rebels win, but everyone who matters to the movie pretty much dies. Uh, the only other times that come to me off the top of my head where main important characters end up dying during the movie are really Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. And with all these characters dying, it's made all the more interesting because these are interesting, memorable characters that are dying, and they're not afraid to make those deaths hurt and make them meaningful. I think just that all combines to make a movie that really stands out from the rest of the mainline movies.
Hell, I mean, the characters are so compelling. We've got one with a TV show
Yeah.
that's getting a whole second season. I can get down with that pick.
Yeah, if I had to pick like a second favorite, I think Rogue One would be it.
I say somewhere on the computer, I got tier list somewhere. Rogue One's pretty far up there.
Oh yeah. I think in terms of just like quality of overall movie, it is it's probably like the best one.
Rogue One is also pretty high up in my own tier list. For a lot of the reasons that Donovan stated, it's just such a good, grounded movie that doesn't feel like Star Wars
It's like
in such a good way.
they went to such effort that like even the like in episode 1, not episode 1, my bad, episode 4, even in, like the slums of and like crime-ridden streets of Mos Eisley, everything kind of still looks like a prop. Like that area doesn't necessarily feel lived in, used, but like just the panning shots through the Urso's farmstead, everything in there looks like it's weathered and used and just beat up just by people living their life. And it just
Oh yeah,
it works so good.
even Jin's little stormtrooper doll that she has, like
Yeah.
that's really fucking cool.
I think Rogue One makes the best of Disney's budgets out of any of the movies in terms of
Oh yeah.
actually applying them. Because, I mean, in some of the other ones, you have these really cool, beautiful shots, or, really breathtaking Emperor Palpatine firing lightning into the air. But I'd say that Rogue One does the best of not just spectacle, but actually, yeah, making a universe that feels lived in, and a continuation. Well, not feeling like Star Wars, but feeling like it's in the Star Wars universe. I think that's a very good summary of it.
Yeah. When you brought up spectacle, and I feel like a lot of Star Wars kind of relies on like big spectacle things, especially all of the mainline movies and even Solo. But Rogue One, like it has some aspects of spectacle on Scarif, but like other than that, it's really not something that's brought up, and I think that's really cool.
I think the only time it really does spectacle is when it deals with a certain original trilogy character. You have Darth Vader walking through the hall, and that's the only time it's a spectacle.
I mean,
Oh,
like
yeah.
the firing of the Death Star, both times I'd argue is also very spectacle.
Yeah.
Uh, the animation work there though and CGI work is also very good.
I wanna give all of those VFX artists kisses on the forehead. They deserve it.
What I love most about the production of Rogue One is that they worked their absolute hardest to combine both practical and CG in a way in which it is truthfully difficult in some parts of that movie to make out the difference between the two. You have to have a very keen eye in order to do so.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, I need to. There's a series. There's this guy that I follow called For the Lore, and he does like screen accurate props. And I need to go through his series that he has on Rogue One, where he just goes through shit that you can like buy off of Amazon that was used in the movie as well.
Well, that's what I had. I believe that's over to you next, Justice.
All right. So it's hella cliche. Return of the Jedi. I'm sorry, but we're picking old. We're picking good. I don't think I've seen a movie with a more impactful and emotional climax for me than Return of the Jedi. The end of the movie is always like, damn, this all led here. This is so fun to watch. It also contains my favorite lightsaber duel. Luke and Vader on the Death Star. I think, because I think the best thing about lightsaber duels are when they have a lot of emotion in them. It's less about the flashy laser swords and more about why the people are wielding them and what the goals are or where they come out. You have Luke. He's not just fighting to defeat evil, but he's here to save his dad. And don't get me wrong, like I like duels, like Duel of the Fates, but I think people gush a little too much about just whole spinning lightsabers and not enough about the actual meaning of the duel. And I don't know, it just, when I think of what feels like Star Wars, I think that movie is one of the biggest that give me that Star Wars feel. That hope when there shouldn't be hope. The fighting alongside the most unsuspected allies against the greater evil and prevailing. I also like green lightsabers. And that is very, very shortened. Probably why I like Return of the Jedi so much. It just feels like a great capstone for its trilogy.
I would be inclined to agree. You're probably going to be able to guess my answer to this first question from what I'm about to say, but I believe Return of the Jedi is the perfect conclusion to the franchise had they chosen that to be its conclusion. Like, if they had made the decision early on that nothing would get past this film, nothing timeline-wise would occur after this, that would be the perfect point to end the whole franchise on in my eyes. Not to mention, I think the final duel between Luke and Vader and the space battle of Endor are some of the best pieces of action and cinema that I can think of in the last, God, it has been 40 years. I just remember that. It has been 40 years since Return of the Jedi came out. We're coming close to it, at least.
No, it was earlier this month, the 40th anniversary. Yeah. Return of the Jedi was never really one of my favorite Star Wars movies until I actually got to see it in theaters for the 40th anniversary. I watched it. So my dad went out and watched it with his dad whenever it first came out, and so I was like, "Hey, let's continue the tradition. It's been 40 years. Let's go see it." And I want to see it with my dad, and so we went and watching it in the theater and seeing the fight between Vader and Luke, and seeing all of the stuff that's on Endor and looking at the Rebel base, and it's just super. I think Sonata's right that if Star Wars never wanted to go past that point, I would not complain.
For our viewers at home, this was filmed on the 24th. Return of the Jedi's anniversary is the 25th.
Oh, I'm dumb. Don't ignore me.
I thought it was either today or tomorrow.
Okay.
All right, 339 days, 364 days, and 39 years.
Yes.
Close enough, really.
It's been
There's
40
104
years.
days of summer vacation.
No, there has not been. Yeah, no,
I agree
mean,
with a lot of what's been said already, so I won't reiterate it. But I will say, sometimes it does, it is a completely different experience in theaters, obviously. But it does sometimes show its age a little bit. I'm not the biggest fan of the Ewoks.
Boo! Sorry. How dare you diss my favorite movie?
They don't quite fit the same way, I feel. Fit into the narrative and the setting as well as I would like. Because, watching two logs crush an armored war machine, I could take it or leave it, to be honest. But that is such a relatively small slight on an otherwise great movie that I'm more than willing to overlook it. Return of the Jedi is definitely high up in my list.
I file that away under these guys wear armor that doesn't do anything. It's a space fantasy. I don't care that much. These guys are getting beat down by dudes throwing rocks at them, and they're the most elite uh, military in the galaxy. You're telling me they can't afford slightly better armor?
I mean, the illusions that it was leading towards makes sense within the time period that it was made, because all of that was just or it was a lot of just Vietnam allegory.
Oh yeah.
Also, the inclusion of the Ewoks was, if I recall correctly, at the insistence of individuals of whom wanted more toys to be, or more in the films of which they could make toys out of, would be the proper way of putting it.
Oh, that's correct. It was supposed to be Wookiees originally, wasn't it?
Yeah, but they did opt to change them. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's yeah. I don't know how I feel about the fact that
If it was Wookiees, then a lot of what's happening there makes a lot more sense, to be perfectly honest. Because a Wookiee throwing a rock is much more intimidating than a teddy bear throwing a rock.
I don't know. That one mode that you can go in Battlefront 2, where you're a bunch of
Ewok hunt? Oh god.
Oh yeah, Ewok hunt? No, I think they're pretty terrifying. I mean, just getting flashbanged by a bunch of fireflies is something that I did not know would terrify me as much as it does. But yeah, no, I like the little guys. I like the little dudes. Honestly, my biggest joking pet peeve is, where the fuck did they have that dress for Leia? Because they just like give her a dress. Where was that? Why did they make that?
Probably the last person they ate.
That's a good point.
No, you got a point.
They
No,
are cannibals.
yeah, another thing about that movie, Leia's outfits, spectacular. I love all of them. I want all of them. They're amazing.
All of them?
I really like Leia's woodland camo with her helmet. I like that a lot. Yeah, Justice. All of them.
We cannot forget about. We can't forget about
Bounty Hunter
Leia.
Leia.
Oh yeah, we can't
Oh, of
forget
course.
about one of those first ones as
Bausch.
well.
We can't forget
Yeah.
about Bounty Hunter Leia. What are you
Yeah.
talking about? That's really cool. Where she has the voice modulators. That's really awesome. I love that
yeah.
one.
I, as a man, would love to own the Huttslayer Leia outfit, obviously. No. In all seriousness, though, that is all that I need to say about the movie. Really, I could probably spend like the next 5 hours talking about it on my own with nobody else here. Regardless, I shall hand the baton to Marin now.
Oh, you've made a mistake. So
2008 Clone Wars movie. Got it. No, I'm kidding.
how'd you know? No, my favorite movie, again, this is like the most basic of all basic answers. My favorite is Empire Strikes Back. I'm a sucker for tragedy and storytelling, and they just lose. They lose. Han is basically dead. Luke loses an arm. The rebels do not win. Vader juices the juice. Pray I don't alter the deal any further.
I was gonna say, define what juice the juice means, please.
Vader just is a badass, and he beats Luke in a lightsaber fight, and that's like, whoa, hold on, this guy is no longer just waving a stick at an old man. And I just really I like a lot of the sets. Dagobah is really cool. The cave on Dagobah is really cool, and it has some cool lore things and foreshadowing, and I'm a sucker for foreshadowing, even if it's relatively obvious, although I don't know, hindsight's 2020. Cloud City and Hoth are both beautiful. I also think that the costuming in this movie might be some of the best. Because I mean, you have Luke in his pilot suit, and then you have Leia's Hoth fit, and then you have her Cloud City fit, and then Han just always looks like Han. And then Lando motherfucking Calrissian. I love that man. He's one of my favorite things about Star Wars. I love his suaveness, and that's something that I just loved in Lando Calrissian. And I mean, that's where I also think that the music is probably, because I mean, Imperial March is introduced in Empire Strikes Back. It's not introduced in A New Hope. We don't technically get Vader's theme or the theme of the Empire until movie 2, and it's one of, if not the most iconic piece of movie music ever. And you also get some really cool moments of Han and Leia's theme, and obviously, I mean, the Force theme is juiced.
But the Force theme isn't from that movie.
I know it was introduced in the movie previously, but
Get rolled.
Still, there are some good moments with it. Also, Yoda. I like Yoda a lot. And also, I think that him just smacking R2 with the cane, knowing perfectly well who that droid belonged to, gives me joy.
I think that scene is really funny in the Clone Wars context of
Oh,
they went to Dagobah together. Yeah.
it's great. I don't know. I just really like. I think that this movie is what really set the stakes, because we had like galaxy-wide stakes previously, and that was a big deal. I mean, Alderaan got destroyed, and that was huge. That was a whole planet of people living on it. That was where Leia lived. But in Empire Strikes Back, we get the personal stakes of it, because Vader is Luke's dad. Han is effectively dead. And we got betrayed by an ally, Lando. And so I like all that, and it gets kind of the intrapersonal conflicts into the mix, as well as the plot conflicts. I don't know.
Marin touched upon it, but we also can't forget that Empire Strikes Back delivered one of the most iconic plot twists in all of cinema.
Oh,
A
yeah.
secret so tightly kept that only 2 people... Okay, I guess I should say 3 people on set even knew about it, because they were that desperate to avoid any leaks or any whistleblowers revealing the secret. Because everybody on set believed that the line was, Obi-Wan killed your father.
Mm-hmm.
And then James Earl Jones's line was added in post, and with that, we got a fantastic twist that, as it should have, surprised the entire world. And that's part of the reason why I think that movie is so great, is the care that went into that twist and how it was delivered.
I mean, the movie builds because, and a lot of the actors will talk about that after the filming of the original Star Wars movie. None of them expected it to be as successful as it ended up being, nor was the movie necessarily intended to be like this full-on universe and trilogies. Like, they could have just left it there, and that would have been the point. And so, kind of what Marin said about, like, here we start to get the stakes and everything. Well, the movie gets personal. It sets personal stakes. Almost nothing happens in the grand scheme of things. I think Donovan brought this up once when we talked about it, where nothing happens in Empire besides the rebels getting routed at the very beginning. Nothing happens outside of Luke losing his hand and learning personal information. And I think for a movie to have nothing happen on the grand scheme and still feel so impactful that's not an easy task to pull off. That's probably a good thing that George Lucas outsourced some of the writing and the directing to somebody else to do that. So it's not just him writing it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
and
just
like
go ahead.
there's I it's a lot easier for characters like to do what Han did in episode 4, just saying no, this isn't my fight, when it is this galaxy-wide thing. Because the destruction of Alderaan didn't affect Han. But when the stakes are brought in and made so personal, and your characters can't run from it, you start to be able to see who your characters actually are, and start being able to also say, hey, this is where this character is going. On top of that, the movie's great because I love watching heroes lose. What a hero does in failure defines them more than how they can win.
They letter for the folks in the back. Yeah, Donovan hit the nail on the head with that last point. I like watching the good guys lose because obviously this is a movie that has 3 acts, but also it is the second act in a 3-part trilogy. And that point is whenever the stakes are set and whenever oh god, I can't remember the exact point in the hero's journey. Like I can't remember the term for it, but it's whenever the hero loses something and whenever they like get beat and have to recover in order to actually do it again, and that's whenever like most of the conflict happens. And I mean, yeah, I like that. I'm very cohesive, can you tell?
Yeah, no. There is a reason that Empire is second on the list, and that's because it's a damn good movie. That's my second favorite movie. For a long time, it held the first spot. And you can get into all the nitty gritty about like, oh, it's a better quality movie. It's a better movie than Return of the Jedi. And for a long time I did believe that, but because there is just so much about it that is very fun and insightful. And when we're talking about like the hero, one thing that George Lucas does with the hero in it that's really great is that in the first movie, it's a really cookie cutter fantasy story. Honestly, you have your rogues, you have you're kind of like, hey, let's go train under the old wizard to go free the princess from the big dark castle and the dark wizard, kind of story. Luke is it is so windy out. If you hear any noise, it's because shit's getting thrown around. I'm gonna have to shut my windows after I'm done speaking. But so Luke is a very cliche, oh, I'm related to this really famous guy. Oh, I deserve to be a hero. I want to be a hero. I was made for it. Luke still has that mentality in Empire Strikes Back. And it actively works against him. And I think that's just really genius to see done out, is that his character hasn't changed that much in this movie. It's not until you jump to Return of the Jedi where he is drastically changed. But in Empire Strikes Back, he's still, I have to save my friends. I'll triumph. I know I will. I have to save my friends. And then he doesn't. And, it's all of his characteristics that made him the triumphant hero in the first movie now make him defeated. And it's just really cool to sit there and watch and see.
Yes.
But yes, I will conclude my take about your movie and go shut the fucking window.
No, I mean, I'm a big lover of Greek tragedies, and so whenever the fatal flaw of the character, which for Luke is hubris, he believes that he is the chosen one, which he is. But because of that knowledge and because of that belief that he is special, he believes that he can change something that he can't, no matter how much he tries. And I mean, it's kind of memed to hell and back now, but Luke's just gut wrenching scream of denial whenever Vader tells him that he's his father, that still makes me like lose it every single time watching the movie, and I've watched this movie since I was a wee tot. Yeah, good
You also got to
movie,
give
make me feel happy.
you've also got to give a lot of credit to the actors,
Oh fuck yeah.
because a lot of these movies would not be anywhere as good as they were without just the quality of acting that went into them.
Mhm.
Or them
the
revising the
entire
script.
yeah,
Yes.
the interactions between Han and Leia on Hoth are priceless. I love them, and the fact that it kind of he grabs her hand and leads her on, which I think is something we have that moment where in Force Awakens where Rey's like, "Quit fucking grabbing my hand." I feel like that's kind of a callback to Han just like grabbing Leia's hand and running her through the halls of the Echo base. I don't know. I just like little character moments like that. And then obviously like this movie has I think the best one-liners out of the Star Wars movies. I have altered the deal. We don't pray I don't alter it any further. We have I am your father, and we have I love you, I know. Which I mean,
Never tell me the
my uncle
odds!
yeah, never tell
Come
me the
on.
odds. My uncle had I love you, I know engraved on the inside of his wedding bands. It's so iconic.
I hate to ask this question, but is that like an ongoing marriage or is it over?
Yes.
Oh, okay,
It's an
cool.
ongoing marriage.
I
remember
not gonna
that
lie, I thought
uncle
it'd be
is
kind of funny.
actually like the guy that got me back into Star Wars. I remember very vividly he had Han and Carbonite as his phone case.
Mm.
I thought that was
Was
the
it
coolest
was
shit
it like
ever as like an 11-year-old.
was it like 3-dimensional? Like,
Yeah,
yeah, I
it's
would
a
hate to
great.
hold that.
I don't know. I thought it was cool.
I mean that's cool, but I'd hate to hold that.
I don't know. He managed.
Man, imagine you're such a hotshot smuggler, but then you're just demoted to a phone case.
As a wise man once said, "That's rough, buddy."
Yeah,
Oh,
that's all my thoughts on that movie.
Sonata, I do believe it's your turn.
Yep. So my favorite is Return of the Jedi.
Boo! Get new
Okay.
material.
Unoriginal. I said that one already. No.
And we've already discussed so many different ways, so many different reasons as to why that movie is so good. But I will bring one up that we haven't discussed much, and it is the scale of it all. So, when we start out that film, first we have very little idea as to what is actually happening. And that entire debacle is like condensed into a single area of a single planet. We know they're there to rescue Han, but of course things go wrong. Yay, we got Han back, but also, oh no, Han's going to get fed to a Sarlacc, so it's everybody else. And
I'm sorry, Sonata. Before you go on, did you say debacle?
yeah, probably.
Keep myself from laughing.
Like,
I'm sorry. I just had to point that out and laugh at it.
Sonata never
I am-
changed.
I am the jester of this group. We all know this. Moving on. And after that, we're moved immediately from what is basically like you could be forgiven for thinking like this is like kind of a big deal, but it's also like not really a big deal to, oh yeah, we're about to do a raid on what is effectively the Imperial headquarters right now. Uh, because we know the Emperor is going to be there. And it's that shift in scale that I like because they don't waste time. There is no like pointless banter or side stuff to try and lead into it. It's just we go from rescuing Han to planning the raid on the second Death Star and the shield generator on the Force Moon of Endor, which I've always really liked.
That
And
that's a very good point. I'll also point out that does a really good job of setting the personal stakes for each character, and then transitioning those personal stakes into the wider galaxy-wide stakes.
Oh yeah. And you were talking about scale, and like when I think of scale, I think of like actual physical scale most of the time because I mean that's just what comes to mind whenever I think about that word. And I think the perfect example of just how personal yet massive it all is Luke looking out the window of the Emperor's chamber on the Death Star because he can see the fight happening outside. You can see the fight happening outside and how little but still wide spanning all of it is, but just how large Luke and the Emperor are in those frames because that's the true heart of the conflict. Yeah, there's this giant galaxy wide thing that's going on and it's crazy and it's huge, but Luke and the Emperor and Vader are in that room, and they're the heart of it, and it's just really cool. You brought
it's
up an
like
excellent point.
it's like how the battle outside is obviously important, but but it's almost like a reflection of the battle happening within.
Oh yeah.
The
Not
battle
just,
outside is insignificant next to the power of the Force.
and I say that both in the sense of the battle within that throne room and the battle within Luke at that time.
And Vader.
And Vader as well, that's true. In that moment, Luke came the closest he had up until that point to falling to the dark side.
Mm.
Which it just shows how it's like the point that was brought up with Donovan earlier of like some people love to watch the heroes lose, and Luke came so close to losing himself in order to gain what in the end would have been a meaningless victory, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Amazing. Good movie.
Indeed.
Yeah. I was kind of scared that we were gonna step on each other's toes, but all of us.
Yeah, Sonata kind of stomped on me. I feel so offended. No, I knew that picking Return of the Jedi, somebody probably was. Like, I wouldn't have surprised me. I'm not angry about it. This is the introduction to us. We are allowed to have similar or the same interests in certain movies. There's nothing wrong with stomping on the toes.
There's also only like 12 options.
12? Yeah, 12. Unless you count the holiday specials.
Fuck yeah. Those are my favorite. What are you talking about?
Anyways.
Original holiday special?
Shh. Shh.
Sorry.
No, stop. Back to the top. Donovan, what's your favorite Star Wars show?
Favorite show would have to go to good old The Clone Wars. Not the funny what was it, 2003 one, but the the mainstream one everyone's seen. Just because there's a few reasons. Mostly because it just tells so many different types of stories through the same show. It's like there's war stories as we follow the Jedi on the front lines. There's political intrigue in Padme's episodes. We get to watch bounty hunters pulling off heists of locations like the Jedi Temple or the Senate building. And like not all of these stories are great per se, but each one of them are well put together, and most of the time my enjoyment or lack thereof is just coming down to personal taste. Because like the Mortis arc, really well put together. Like it internally makes sense. It fits well into the overall scheme and timeline. I just don't think it's necessarily necessary. But there are so many other stories being told within the show that just work really well, and they're all just technically good stories. Additionally, there's also some very interesting takes on old characters, such as Ventress and Dooku, who've come up in previous works, and also very interesting new characters like Mother Talzin and Savage Press. And it's just they do a really good job of introducing these new characters and keeping the old characters unique and feeling like them. And my last real big reason is that in addition to loving watching the heroes lose, I also love watching the death throes of empires in decline. Because by the technical definition, a political body ruling over multiple cultural entities, the Republic is an empire. And the Clone Wars are a symptom of its decline. And of the Sith Lord, but that's slightly irrelevant here. And so watching a political behemoth like that, whose death throes can lash out and ruin the lives of so many people, it's just so interesting to me.
I'm not gonna lie. When you said I like seeing heroes lose, they're gonna say, and I also like to watch clone troopers die. I thought that's where that was going. I for sure thought that's where that was going.
I mean, do they really die when they're expendable?
Oh no.
I'm not even gonna open that can of worms.
I think you
I will
did by
just wait for-
mentioning that you weren't.
I will just wait for my turn.
All right.
Right?
What if we go out of order?
Oh.
To you, Maren,
Oh.
because I know what your favorite show is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
3 guesses as to what it is.
I
Surprise.
think
it's
I think I
also
stepped
the
on your
Clone Wars.
toes.
No,
Um,
you brought up one of the points that I wanted to talk about, which is the fact that you get a lot more angles on the Star Wars universe as a whole. You get some of the political intrigue, you get some of the war stories from the front lines, and you get a lot of personal stories. But my favorite thing about Star Wars as a whole is clones. I love clones. I love the concept behind the clones and the lore and stuff behind them. And my favorite arc is the actually, wait, no, hold on, we'll get to that later.
yes.
But we were watching the Citadel arc. Donovan and I were watching the Citadel arc last night, and I was like pausing, and I was like, hold on, look at this shit, look at that right there, and just
yeah.
like pointing out so much bullshit like in the background. And I don't know, you get highlights on characters that you don't really see a lot previously. Obviously clones, but you also get some really cool stuff with Padme, because Padme she'd been a major character within the movies at that point, but seeing her actually in the Senate, like going to negotiate with other leaders, and I think her relationship with, I can't remember her first name, but Bonteri, Lex Bonteri's
Mina.
mother,
Nina Bonteri.
Nina Bonteri. It brings up a fact that I certainly didn't think about it until that point on like my first watch through the Clone Wars, like, oh yeah, there are people on both sides of this war. And then that brings up the fact that Dooku is leading what is essentially it's the Separatists, but it is a whole nother government. And these people have legitimate reasons for wanting to split off from a corrupt republic, because it is corrupt. And it's just so cool to see that. You get so much cool new lore. Mandalore, basically in its entirety. There's a ton of stuff in Legends about Mandalore, but in terms of canon, there's so much stuff that we learn. We have the introduction of the Darksaber. We have Duchess Satine and Bo-Katan. We see the city of Sundari. We see Concordia. We hear Mandoa spoken, or at least a dialect of it, which I fucking love that. So there's some cool stuff. And we have the introduction of, I would argue, the best written character in all of Star Wars, Ahsoka Tano. I love Ahsoka. She's great. She has some awesome character moments, and Dave Filoni introduced her as this like kind of annoying little kid because she is a literal child going to the front lines of a war, and she's overconfident and brash, and she's much like Anakin. But seeing her grow into a mature person and a Jedi, because that's, I mean, I'm still, people get really finicky about calling Ahsoka a Jedi, but you see her grow into a full-on Jedi, and by the time, I mean, you look at season 1 Ahsoka Tano versus season 7 Ahsoka, and it is still the same character, and she still has a lot of those quirks, but she has matured in a way I love the growth of her character arc. And I mean, Donovan and I were earlier, we're talking about how much we'd like to see the good guys lose. They lose. That Venator goes down. And Ahsoka and Rex are the only ones left, really, and it's sad and it's great. Yeah, I really like the Clone Wars. I can talk about clones all day long, but we don't need to get into that. We'll get into that later. Also, honorable mention to Visions. I fucking love Star Wars Visions.
Alright, but before we get into more Clone Wars, Sonata, did you pick Clone Wars 2, or can we talk about it now?
I did not pick Clone Wars.
Okay, good. Alright. Clone Wars discussion can commence. It's easier to not step on toes when we just get like, oh hey, you guys picked I know you picked the same show. Let's have you both talk about it.
Oh yeah, that's fair.
I would say that seeing as Clone Wars is not my favorite show. I simultaneously enjoy and do not enjoy the fact that you get a ton of everything throughout the Clone Wars. I think there are times where it's very interesting. I think there's times where I've watched an episode once and will never watch it again because I just didn't like him. I like knowing what I'm showing up to a show for. So Clone Wars has that drawback sometimes. It has some wonderful moments scattered throughout it, though. I mean, there are definitely times where you get to see Padme as a full-on character again because she gets so sidelined in Revenge of the Sith, and they cut probably what was one of my favorite character moments for her in Revenge of the Sith, and you know, it's only loosely canon at this point, but the whole delegation of 2000 is something that you can only somewhat see in deleted scenes. But you know, seeing her actually do things and add the perspective of the fact that we know that the military commanders behind the Separatists generally just are pieces of shit. Dooku, Grievous, literally any of the other guys. You know, the guy they have that's testing the defoliator on the Lurman planet
yeah.
of Meriden is just like, hey, I don't care about you guys. Boom. And it's like we all know that they're terrible, but then at the same time we have we do have the people that, and it really shows just the sheer manipulation that the Sith did, that they were able to hijack such a, you know, a well-intended cause at first to be a galaxy-wide war.
We all know that saying about the road to hell.
Yeah, it is paved with manipulations by Sith.
Exactly.
God. And to think all of it was almost stopped by a giant monster at one point, fucking kaiju, or the world's best and worst pirate.
Or a clone trooper.
Yeah, or a clone trooper.
Yeah.
Or Yaddle before it even started.
Yeah. Rip
Uh,
Yaddle.
So many points of failure.
Oh yeah, so many points where Palpatine was just so close to getting figured out. Right there. But that's just
I think
part of it.
I think it shows how good Palpatine is at quick thinking and not, oh, I have all these contingencies. Palpatine, and I'll lean into Bad Batch for this a little bit, with Senator Chuchi.
Season 2.
And that
with
whole...
the Rampart scene.
Yeah.
Fucking love that scene.
Palpatine is not a guy who has everything figured out. He's just a guy who is immensely deceptive and knows how to turn any situation his way. His admiral that bombarded Kamino completely figured out there's all the proof, and yet Palpatine still comes out on top and succeeds on what the original plan was anyways. And it's a case of just like, you know, people always try to tout Palpatine as he's got everything figured out from day one. No, he doesn't. He just knows how to tell the right lies. And I think that is really well shown through just how close. Sometimes he doesn't even lie. Sometimes he tells the truth, and it works.
Oh yeah, I feel like there's a couple times, specifically like in the Zilla Beast arc, where he tells the truth, when like actual real Palpatine comes out for a second there, but it just fits so well into his persona that it's just fine, and it works.
I was thinking about the time he just outright told Fives he was a Sith Lord, but that's besides the point.
But I mean, there's a moment where Palpatine, where like I can't remember exactly what he says, but it's the Zilla Beast like looking into his office. Oh yeah, and Palpatine's like, I think we should go now. I feel like that was like the real fear of like Palpatine, like, oh shit, I might have accidentally made a mistake.
All I'm gonna say, Palpatine would have been fine. He would have been able to kill it.
Oh yeah.
Worst comes to
like,
worst.
Still.
If
Would've
Kylo
giving up all of his plans, though.
Oh
if
yeah.
Kylo Ren could kill one, Palpatine could.
Wait, what?
Yes.
Yup. You heard justice.
Oh god. Oh no.
The side tangent before we move on from Clone Wars is that there's a comic book art where the First Order was sent to subjugate some people, and I'm very heavily paraphrasing, but essentially they worshipped a Zilla Beast, and Kylo Ren and his First Order troops were there, and there's this old ass stormtrooper. He's like an OG stormtrooper. He's like, sir, you know their armor's impenetrable, right? Kylo Ren's like, yeah, I know, and jumps down the thing's throat and kills it from the inside. And so the people worshipped him now. And yes, the Zilla Beasts are theoretically killable.
Interesting.
So,
Yeah.
I guess it's my turn then.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is.
All right. Star Wars Rebels feels like the most Star Wars to ever Star Wars to me outside of the original trilogy. It really does feel like a show that leads up to the original trilogy. Like you've got the overarching Force stuff, where obviously you have a Jedi and their apprentice, and a lot of the time the show spends time dealing with that. At the same time, you have a ton of Rebel Alliance stuff, and you have some really great Star Wars moments within it. Some of my favorite Star Wars moments come from this show. Ahsoka fighting Vader, or I mean, this is where we get on-screen Thrawn for the first time, or just kind of the end of the show. Like I really enjoy Ezra's space whale shenanigans, or Kanan learning to see again. It's just a lot of it is like, it just feels like Star Wars to me. It feels so in line with the original trilogy, and that's kind of the feeling that I like the most from Star Wars. So hands down, best show. Also because it doesn't jump around all over the place, like timeline wise, like Clone Wars does. Shit pisses me off. Just put the episodes in order, please. Disney Plus, thank you. But yeah, that is the short answer of why I picked Rebels. Yeah.
And now, just to make sure that we don't just have two groups of two here, Sonata, you didn't pick Rebels, right?
Correct.
I will bet you $5 Sonata picked Andor.
Sucker's bet.
Do we want to talk about Rebels first, or do we want to?
We should finish talking about Rebels first. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't double down.
Ned, you go ahead.
I have slight gripes about specifically certain facets of the visual style, but I agree with a lot of that. Sometimes it is nice to not have to go, I wonder if this show's gonna be a heist or a war story today.
No, it's just Ghost Crew.
And honestly, I almost feel like because we're not jumping around as much, and we're not jumping around chronologically, or geographically, or chronologically. I think I said chronologically twice.
I think so.
Yeah, I think you did.
Either way, we're not jumping around so much. You can really get to know the characters better. And honestly, I feel like the characters of Rebels are just as good, if not better, than Clone Wars.
Well, I think the primary characters of the Clone Wars are characters that we already knew, with the exception of Ahsoka and Captain Rex. There are 4 outright main characters, I'd say, with Padme edging very close to a main character. I don't think she's in enough to call her an actual main character. But Anakin, Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, and Rex are there that often. But we'll throw Padme in because I'm not sure on the actual episode count of that. So with those 5, there are only 2 of those that we're introduced to here. Of which Rebels expands on anyways. So it's like those characters are there anyways. And I think Rebels really does have that time where... Now, the content of what happens in an episode maybe isn't as consistent as, we don't know if we're gonna get train heist today or we're getting a war story. You can get either. But I don't think the tone is necessarily like this dramatic, complete, like, jarring jump between episodes like it can be. like if you went from Citadel arc to the Bardotten arc with Jar Jar Binks and Mace Windu,
Yeah.
which obviously aren't like next to each other in a release order, but
But like you get in Clone Wars you do get that like stark dissonance. There's a Mara arc, and then I think right after is the droid arc.
Yeah.
and Rebels always feels like it's a part of the same show.
Yeah.
I like that. I like all of the characters a lot. I am so unbelievably excited to see them again.
Oh yes.
Uh, um, yeah.
I think Rebels definitely does have a better sense of, I wouldn't say a better sense of tone, because I feel like Clone Wars doesn't necessarily go for one type of tone, while Rebels does. And like early season 1 of Rebels feels very iffy to me. Like whenever I rewatch Rebels, I still feel kind of like meh about those episodes, like the Melu Run episode. That one, it's just goofy and it's cute, sweet fun. But at that point, that's what Ghost Crew is kind of there for, just kind of, small jobs, helping out where they can on Lethal, whatever. And as the show progresses, it just gets bigger and bigger as our characters mature, which is really cool. Rebels also has 3 of my favorite lightsaber fights. Although one of them has air quotes on being a lightsaber fight, and that is Sabine training with
Oh,
Ezra.
I'd also say that Obi-Wan and Maul in Rebels is also
Oh,
air
come on. But
quotes on
that's
a saber
so.
fight, but it is
Uh,
one of my favorite. Like it's a half step lower than Luke and Vader on the Death Star.
mm,
Like it's because that fight really, I think,
It's less of
um
a fight and more of just a masterclass in manipulation.
well, it's such good character, because it really shows Maul hasn't changed a bit. Dude is still motivated by the same thing he's been motivated for the last 30 years. Um, Obi-Wan is really wise. He knows exactly who Maul is at this point because he's been dealing with him for 30 years. And Obi-Wan has grown and evolved as a person and as a character. And so it's a really quick you snooze you lose kind of situation where Maul didn't adapt. Maul died.
mm. Yeah. For my gripes about the art style, like what Donovan said, I'm I will never ever ever be a fan of Exra. Um, there
Oh,
are still
the short hair
yes,
version. Yeah,
yes,
not
where
a
he's
fan of that
supposed
either.
to vaguely look like Starkiller. I just call him Exra. Um, there's some still really cool moments, like oh god, the moment where the I can't remember the name of the episode, but it's in like season 2 or 3, and they're just kind of like jumping through hyperspace trying to get away from Price. And there's this moment where they're like about to step in, where they're about to like fly past or fly into like some sort of like star cluster or something. That is one of the most gorgeous scenes in all of Star Wars. Fight me on that, I will.
Oh,
Also, go ahead.
I was gonna say it's sometime in season 3, because it's when they're running from the Defender.
Yeah.
Because it's the episode with Mothma and
Oh yes.
Dutch, the really annoying Y-wing pilot.
Yeah. Um, I really like season 3. Really. Oh, it's Secret Cargo. That's the episode.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Agent Callus, cool. I like him. Whatever. Um,
Callus is pretty juiced.
Agent
Callus is
Callus
pretty
is
cool.
Agent Callus is a a turncoat story arc done right, I think.
Oh yeah. And I also feel like Rebels gets us a lot more focus on the Force itself. And it shows us a bunch of interesting facets of it. Because we have the world between worlds, which is awesome. And we have focus on the holocrons and just how awesome and dangerous they can be. I like that a lot. And also funny foresight.
Funny foresight's pretty good. I've made my distaste for Rebels' earlier seasons pretty clear in the past. Whereas, like, I don't dislike them, like, completely or totally. There are just moments in both Season 1 and Season 2 that are, like, really, really good, and most of the show is, by comparison, lackluster. It's hardly a surprise to anybody here when I say that, for me, the show got good when they brought Thrawn in.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Simp.
That I am.
for our viewers at home, Sanada just absolutely loves Thrawn. It is borderline unreasonable and obsessive. I've recommended a therapist multiple times.
I'm already seeing a therapist.
It's
Unrelated issues, one presumes.
yeah, yeah. I'm not kidding.
Correct.
Yeah.
After going through a proper rewatch of seasons 1 and 2, I've realized that I've unfairly judged the prior seasons entirely based off of what I perceive. Okay, Donovan. Okay. So
I'll shut up now.
I went directly from Clone Wars into Rebels, pretty much. And for me, the difference in art style was what turned me off the most when I first explored the series. And that kind of helped shape my own negative opinions on the show to the point where I didn't quite give it the shot it deserved. Now that I've rewatched a good chunk of it, it's not as bad as I used to think it was. But it definitely has moments where I ask myself, why am I watching this? Up until the conclusion of season 2. Once Ahsoka and Vader meet back up, that comes to the point where, yeah, that's why I'm watching this.
Oh, come on.
Oh, my thing is, I've heard so many people say that they won't watch Rebels because of the art style. And I kind of raised the question at this point. If you can't work past something that you don't like, visually 100% go, oh yeah, I love that. I gotta ask, what do you do when you watch the original trilogy and you see this super aged, like, I only expect the same logic to be because as much as I love just the sheer cutting edge variety of the special effects in the 70s and early 80s that they did, not all of it has exactly aged well.
Oh yeah.
So, and I've made my peace with that. I don't mind if sometimes it doesn't look visually the best. I don't care. I just, yeah.
My only gripe with it is just the thin lightsabers
Mhm.
and the fact and the lack of consistency, where they did on the rare occasion that a character that was returning from other works had a normal sized lightsaber hilt, but a thin blade. And it just looks wrong. That's really my only big issue. And it really only comes up with Obi-Wan.
Kind of comes up with Vader too, but it's harder to notice with him.
It is, because he's usually farther away from the camera. And it's just... there are times where it's very obvious as well that they were not getting the same level of funding that Clone Wars was.
Oh yeah,
For
definitely no.
for instance, the very short hair.
Mm-hmm.
They probably would have kept his hair very similar to how it was in the first season, were it not for, I would presume, budgetary issues. Because short hair like that's a lot easier to animate, I'd imagine.
You don't even animate it; it is just there.
Oh, that's another thing. In season 3, in the episode Twin Suns, when they return to Tatooine, um, the Tusken Raiders are missing like all of the loose hanging fabric, like tunic style stuff that they are, longer leg coverings that generally they have, because of they didn't want to animate them. They didn't. I don't remember if it's budget or time or both, but they just didn't do it. Which, I mean, it's whatever. It worked out fine. But yeah, it definitely didn't seem to get the same budgetary attention.
Yeah, and I mean, especially because most of us, I mean, we grew up with watching the Clone Wars and getting used to that Clone Wars style. The style of Rebels is similar enough to Clone Wars to where it still feels like it should be the same, but it's different to the point where it's a little bit of uncanny valley. But I imagine the people that grew up with Rebels feel the same way whenever they go back and watch Clone Wars, or at least the early seasons of Clone Wars.
I'll also say, yeah, the early seasons of Clone Wars look like
Yeah,
dog
they look
shit.
like dog shit. They look
Yeah.
like garbage. That's because they were made in 2008 with the budget of 3 crayons and a hope and a prayer.
You can't forget the
But Rebels
Huff
was the
blue
same way.
snake.
Yes. And Rebels was the same way for the entire production. Because it just didn't get as much. Rebels didn't get. I'll say popular. Rebels didn't get the attention it deserved until well after it stopped airing, I think.
It's because they spent all their money getting live action Fred from the live action Scooby Doo movies.
Yeah, but I mean, even
Not his wife.
yeah. Honestly, season 2 of Rebels is still really good because you've got Siege of Lothal, you've got Lost Commanders and Relics of the Old Republic, which are funny clone episodes. You've got Protector of Concord Dawn. You've got the introduction of space whales. Space whales. The Honorable Ones, which is like everybody's favorite episode. That's the episode where Callus and Zeb are stuck on the ice planet, on the ice moon, above Geonosis. Isn't that it? Or whatever?
Yeah.
I don't remember. Yeah. You also have Shroud of Darkness, which is Ahsoka, Kanan, and Ezra in the temple. And you've got Part 1 and 2, Twilight of the Apprentice. And they're only, I mean, I say only, 22 episodes in a season of a show is a lot now. But like those are some crazy good episodes.
All right, I'm cutting you off.
Cut me off.
Sonata, it is your turn. Go ahead and
Yes,
talk about
go.
Andor.
Sorry.
Hey, Sonata, what's your favorite show?
Okay. Marin, Donovan, Hand Justice is $5.
Yay!
I said sucker's bet. I didn't take the bet.
You are a sucker, so by saying sucker's bet, you agreed. Sorry. I expect that by the end of the evening.
You say so.
There's a handful of reasons why Andor got to the top, and I will say up front that Clone Wars got close. But in the end, how Andor changed things for how I view the universe is what won out. Up until Andor, outside of like a handful of small glimpses in Rogue One, we didn't get to see a dark side to the Rebellion. The Rebellion was kind of just always viewed in this positive light of they are the obvious heroes while the Empire are the obvious villains. But deep down we know with any resistance movement you're going to have like more shady dealings, and you're going to have people doing things that are definitely not on the moral side of like the moral side of the scale. So Andor provided an opportunity for us to get to see that underbelly, but on top of that, it also gave us the opportunity to see the effects of that underbelly take shape in the greater galaxy. From what was originally just a single planet to a heist on another planet, leading to galaxy-wide changes, and so many people's lives changing simply because of the actions of a select few people. And on top of all of this, it does a really good job of expanding upon the backstory of a character that is definitely, in my opinion, one of the highlights of the movie which introduced him. And overall, that is why I like Andor the best out of all of the shows that have been presented so far.
I like to sum up Andor as the show about a Star Wars character that we never knew we needed, because Andor is the first Star Wars project that actually has good dialogue written in it. I'm gonna be honest. Star Wars dialogue is, even Mark Hamill. I mentioned earlier that the actors input things, to change scripts. There's this one clip of Mark Hamill where he just goes, "George, we got to change this dialogue line. Nobody speaks like that." And Andor delivers, I think, really a perfect adult like show. Like it's made for an older audience. Where
That's
we're
the
not.
shit word.
Yes. And it does it in the way that we're suggesting that darkness. We are muddying the waters a little in that, because obviously you kind of don't want the world to be gray for a 6-7 year old watching Star Wars. It's very clear that Luke's the good guy and Vader's the bad guy, despite the fact that Luke blew up millions of people in the first movie he was ever in. So, Andor, and it goes about it in probably the best way, because people. I don't tell you how many times I've seen people say something along the lines of, "Oh, I want a Band of Brothers style Star Wars film. I want an R-rated Vader film where we just see him hacking through." No, when I want adult Star Wars content, let me rephrase that. When I want Star Wars content geared for adults,
No good way to say it.
a more mature audience, Andor is like the perfect way to do it. The themes are a bit more mature and everything, but it's not this gore fest like some people want it to be. It handles the realism of it really well and really grounds the Star Wars universe, I think. And it was very close to making my favorite. When the show came out, my opinions on it were it was probably the best thing to happen in the last 40 years for Star Wars. I will maintain that I think Rebels stays above that, but Andor is so damn good. And I'm also looking forward to the second season of that. Can't see it, but I just raised my drink for a cheers. So please cheer me.
Indeed.
Donovan, you haven't even watched all of Andor, have you?
No, I'm working on it though. I'm
All
working
right,
on
all right. Kick them. No, I'm
it. Yeah,
kidding.
kick me. Kick me.
No, I love Andor. It's definitely my favorite live action show. It doesn't really have much competition, to be completely honest.
prior to season 3 of The Mandalorian, I would have
Yeah,
debated you on that.
Yeah,
But
whatever. We'll talk about that someday.
we'll burn that bridge when we get there.
Yeah, but Andor is incredible. It has some of the best written dialogue. It has, I feel, the most real environments in all of Star Wars. Ferrix feels so tangible and real and grounded. We get Star Wars bricks, guys. Very important. Bricks in Star Wars.
Sorry, I'm out. I'm out. I can't do screws and bricks. Sorry.
What?
Sorry. I don't mean to be taking pot shots at a Star Wars YouTuber in our first episode. That's mean.
Whatever. We get real actual space lesbians, not just the 0.2 second or the 2.4 seconds that we get in Rise of Skywalker. We get actual real space lesbians between Cinta and Val.
To double back slightly, past the space lesbians like Disney, I'm just gonna overlook that. The reason the environments look so real is because a lot of them are, and that's one of the things that I really appreciate is that they actually went to a lot of these sets. Like I remember, even way before the show came out, I think it was Diego Luna, if I'm not mistaken, was talking about how they went into the Scottish Highlands for filming some of the Aldani scenes, and I was like, yeah, that's really good because I am tired of seeing this volume screen bullshit. Because the Mando Season 1 and Mando Season 2 use it well. Favreau knows what he's doing with it. Nobody else does. It looks like ass everywhere else. It was very rare in Mando where it like caught me off guard and kind of took me out. But the other shows, Book of Boba Fett and Kenobi, they relied on it a little too heavily for everything, and it really detracted me from it, I think. So it was really nice to see that they returned to standard CGI and a lot of practical sets, and I think that did wonders for grounding the show.
I'm really excited because there's like set pictures and stuff where they're going to be filming in London, which a lot of people think is going to end up being Coruscant, like some of the lower levels of Coruscant, which would be cool as hell.
That's pretty on brand for London.
But also, we have some... God, I hate it when people make me root... I hate it, but I love it whenever people make me root for the Empire. Because they're... her name slips my mind. What's her name?
Dedra Miro.
Dedra. I am rooting for her. But at the same time, I'm rooting for Cassian, and I'm rooting for Mothma. It's so hard because these people are gonna conflict with one another. I mean, they are. It's just great.
Indeed. I'm sorry, go ahead, Justice.
How R-rated do we want to get on here? How R-rated do we consider I want her to step on me?
I think that's about the line.
Okay.
I wouldn't go into anything more explicit than that.
I think anything more, and we will not be able to upload this on YouTube.
I think you'd be
also
surprised.
All of us can agree with that statement.
I think Donovan's met Dedra Miro yet.
I don't think so either.
God.
However, we all tend to have... No, that's not a phrase I can say with any degree of certainty, so I shall simply shut up.
I can say, with the amount of time that I have known you, you will probably really enjoy Dedra.
Donovan, you played any of the Witcher games?
A little bit of Witcher 3.
How hot do you find Yennefer's voice?
I
Right.
see.
She is who plays Dedramiro.
Yep.
Ooh.
Also, Mon Milfma? Sorry, I gotta stop. Please,
You
please,
do need to stop.
please take it away from me.
Okay, so I'm going
So
to
time to
avoid.
server mute the server owner.
So this is why we have to wait at least 2 weeks before we talk about The Mandalorian Season 3. I have filled up my quota. We shall not talk about the 2% gang today.
Of course.
I think, actually, looking at the time here, Donovan, what's your favorite arc of
Oh.
any show?
Keep talking.
Favorite
I will be
arc.
right back.
Realistically, it's kind of a two-way tie, really. Just because they cover a lot of the same concepts and things that I enjoyed seeing. And I gotta go with Maul Returns and the Shadow Collective from Clone Wars.
Interesting.
I
Cool.
love seeing villains as the protagonist. Love watching them build up their little power bases, make moves toward their goals, and then watch it all come crumbling down, or them actually achieving something for once.
Well, this is Darth Maul. He's not allowed to achieve anything.
Exactly.
He is the Skeletor of the Star Wars franchise.
Yeah. No, that's a good aspect. I like that. Those episodes definitely are interesting, because they give some vague insight again into some of the other things that you don't think about when you think Clone Wars. You think about clones and droids fighting, and not, oh hey, there's this galactic war. What are the criminal guys doing? Oh, they're getting overtaken by a Sith Lord, apparently.
And it also gives a lot of insight into how the Sith work when they're not already, controlling the, the Senate and all that. It shows how they work out there in the field as opposed to in the office.
I
In
think
the
that's so
office.
funny. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Palpatine's got an
But I
office.
mean,
I
Donovan's
mean,
completely correct.
yeah, just don't tell Palpatine he's got an office job. No.
Really?
All right. Yeah, no. That's a solid. I don't know why it surprises me in some capacity, but I think it's a solid ass pick. I don't know what I would have guessed as your favorite though.
Fair enough.
But yeah, criminals. Yes, I'll go if we have no more comments about the Clone Wars criminals.
Oh, no, it's great. I love Savage, and I love Maul, and I love how Maul manipulates Savage, and just how evil it is. Because, I mean, obviously you've seen Maul before he killed Qui-Gon Jinn, and that's holy shit. But then you don't really get much more than that. Like, he's a Sith Lord and he taunts Obi-Wan, or not a Sith Lord, but he's a Sith and he taunts Obi-Wan. But getting into the nitty-gritty of just how pure evil Maul is, and just how broken of a man he is, oh, it hurts, but it's so good.
It wasn't Sith Lord in The Phantom Menace. If you're a Sith, you're
He
a Sith
was a Sith Lord?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah, because he
That's-
had the title Darth.
That's that is the 2-second break of the Sith work. It's a Sith are funny guys. Yeah, no.
They're fun.
Maul's a very fun character. Kind of just because he is so good at what he does, and yet he loses. And I think it's just his role as the Skeletor of Star Wars, as Sonata said, that I think that's the fascination of Maul to me. He's not some great, like, oh, he's gonna win every fight or something like that. No, I mean, he knows what to do, yet he always loses. Um, yeah, cheers to Darth Maul.
Oh,
All right.
I leave this on to you then, Justice. What's your favorite arc?
It's now Trials of the Darksaber. Technically, I file away as the 2 episodes in season 3 Sabine wields it, despite the fact that Trials of the Darksaber is the name of the first episode. Sabine and her 2-episode stint with the Darksaber is my favorite. Because it really takes the time away from the Jedi, as much as I love them, gives some actual good development to this whole Darksaber that we've had hinted at. And Sabine may not be my favorite character. She is so far up there, though. And it's really this nice, like, really well done emotional catharsis for her. To finally, like, you see her vocalize it all, and really, it's such a massive point of character development for her to go from this girl who's really burdened by her past to kind of starting to learn a bit of the Jedi let it go philosophy, and really coming to accept that, hey, maybe my identity as a Mandalorian is not completely lost. And then she kicks Gar Saxon's ass.
hell
course.
yeah.
Yeah, Trials of the Darksaber.
Rest in peace,
Ray Stevenson,
by the way.
Yeah.
Yep.
Rip to a G.
Yep.
For those that don't know, he was the voice of Gar Saxon.
What?
And also
Evil.
the new Force guy in the Ahsoka
Good
trailer.
old Balin Skull.
Indeed.
Yeah. Alright. You already dropped the ball a little bit, Marn. Tell us about
Yeah.
Umbara.
I love Umbara because it does my favorite thing. Separates the clones and the Jedi, and it focuses on the clones. Also, I want to go back on something that I said earlier. I said that right after one of the clone arcs was the droid arc. I was incorrect. The droid arc comes in season 5 after the youngling arc, where Ahsoka takes the younglings to Ilum, and then they have that whole shebang.
Okay, so it's not a complete tonal shift.
Yeah.
Marin, incomplete. No, I'm I was just.
I was wrong. Sorry.
Yeah. I was
How
gonna make
will
fun of
dare
you, and then I blundered over my words.
How rare of it for me to be incorrect about a topic.
Yeah.
All right, you're off the podcast. Goodbye.
It's like
shit,
rolling.
bye.
It's like rolling a number between 1 and 6 on a d6. Like, that's how rare it is. Anyways.
But no, okay. Umbara. Darkest on Umbara, the General, Plan of Descent, and Carnage of Krell. Holy shit. I'm the type of person who, Justice mentioned it earlier, being like, people wanting a Band of Brothers episode, people wanting a Band of Brothers type of show from Star Wars. I'm one of those people. I want one about the clones, and the Umbara arc is pretty much the closest that we get to it. But also seeing the war from the clones' perspective, especially whenever they're, because Anakin, seemingly, he's not a rarity within the Jedi Order, but he's definitely a standout because he treats his clones so differently from everybody else. And so seeing the 501st be taken from Anakin and put in the charge of the exact opposite of him in terms of how he treats the clone troopers with Krell is so interesting. And seeing how the clones react to having to go against the thing that they were bred for, which is serving, and having to decide whether or not they will be insubordinate, commit sedition, or continue to do something that they know will get them killed. And you see both sides of the coin. You see Dogma, who is 110%, we have to follow the general's order, he's our general, yada yada yada. And then we see Fives, who's like, no, fuck this guy, he's getting all of us killed. And then you see Rex in the middle, who's grappling with it. And Rex had been a big character, but he didn't really get his moment up until this point. I think the Umbara arc was the moment that he became a main character within the Clone Wars. And also, Fives is spectacular. Because you see a ton of Fives, and throughout the entirety of like the Domino Squad evolution, you always see that Fives is this sort of oh god, what's the word for it? He's always been very independent, and seeing that it super comes to a head here, especially in the episode Planet Descent, where they actually take the ships and go up and blow this stuff up. He directly disobeys orders, which is like, clones aren't supposed to do that. And it's just watching that arc with the context of the inhibitor chip arc later on just hurts so much. You get to see the introduction of 2 new clones, Tup and Dogma, and I guess Oppo, but Oppo doesn't really have many lines. And I think you also get, to me, the most brutal scene out of the Clone Wars, and that is, or just like the most hard-hitting battle scene of the Clone Wars, and that's whenever Krell is like, oh, they've stolen our armor, and then they go in and have that battle against their own brothers. And the moment where Rex says, they're clones, like, stop firing, it makes my stomach churn every time because it just causes so much pain. It's so good. And then in the episode Darkness on Umbara, one of my favorite little details that I've noticed about it is the second that they actually touch down on Umbara to begin the assault, the music cuts out. And it is just the sounds of the battle. So how it would actually sound to these guys on the ground. And that's like, I think that's like the second that you realize, like, oh, this arc is not going to be a typical, Jedi going against the guys, going against some droids. These are clones against people. Just the Umbarans. They aren't even fighting droids at this point. They're fighting Umbarans. They're fighting actual sentient people. And it's just, this arc is so hard-hitting. And yeah, the Republic wins out in the day. The clones, they get Krell, and they take hold of Umbara, but there's an interaction between, I think it's Rex and Fives, and one of them asks was this worth it? And the shot is of like 2 or 3 clones just sitting on some boxes, exhausted and clearly traumatized by the events that they've just gone through. And it's another instance of technically the heroes won, but honestly, did they? So yeah, I can talk about Umbara all day. Someone please cut me off.
All right. My take on Umbara is free my homie Pong Krell. He didn't do anything wrong.
I am going
I agree.
to put you into a chokehold.
Technically speaking, the only thing Pong Krell was really guilty of was destruction of Republic property.
No, Pong Krell was completely right, but he also murdered a ton of clones, which was totally unnecessary. But he did it because he enjoyed it.
Destruction of Republic property.
Yeah, it's not really murder if they're not legally recognized as people.
Oh my god, don't. Just don't. This is a topic for another day.
Just think.
Episode Hyperdrive Hour episode 2. Are clones people?
Technically
No,
speaking, yes,
next
clones
episode.
are clones are Republic property, and that is something that's like kind of touched on in the arc as well.
Sonata,
Not very
no.
much.
Next
Like,
episode.
I'm glad somebody caught on.
Oh, I caught that. I just decided not to date it. Stick by it with a response.
yeah. No, but I love Umbara. I can talk about clones all day. Rip to my homie Hardcase. What a G. I actually pointed out to one of my friends that a lot of people think that Hardcase is introduced in that arc. No, he's not. He's introduced way back in season 2. In the episode where Rex gets shot by a commando droid on whatever planet that was, I forgot.
Yeah, alongside
The Lucamite?
Kix, right?
Yeah, so it's Kix and Jesse, and it's Kix, Jesse, Hardcase, and Rex, and those are the 4 that are sent out.
My homie
Yeah,
Kix.
on Saleucami, and then Rex gets sniped.
Yeah.
Anyhow, I'm fulfilling your request, Marin, and I'm cutting you off.
Yeah, go
you.
for it, Sonata.
All right, so once
All right,
again,
I'm cutting Sonata off now.
excellent. I've talked for far too long. Go ahead. Okay. This was once again a really hard decision because, truth be told, there's been a lot of really banger arcs throughout all of the different Star Wars shows. But in the end, what I really considered was what arc had me emotionally pulled in from start to finish. And in the end, that went down to the Siege of Mandalore in Season 7.
Yep.
And there are a variety of reasons why I love that arc so much, but the biggest one is not just the duel between Ahsoka and Maul, but also the conversation between them. Not only is that written beautifully, it is acted beautifully. And this is one of those moments where I was sitting down and I was thinking, this is a kid's show. This is a kid's show with writing so good that, truth be told, there are adult shows that don't come up to this standard. Why is this so good? And then of course we just have all of the battle scenes, and then finally we just have the breakdown of Maul near the end. Let me go, let me die, you don't know what you're doing. And there's just that that realization for the viewer of, yeah, we know what he's talking about. We know what's coming, and he's right. It's not every day you say Maul is right.
Yeah.
You're all going to burn. You're all going to die.
All right, I think I got my one hot take for the episode. I was not emotionally invested in the Siege of Mandalore at all.
Me
Are you
neither.
I think
Siege
it's.
of Mandalore, that arc, I watch it all together all the time, and it's my favorite prequel movie.
I think that I would have been so heavily invested in that arc if it had come out before Rebels, but I think I had a hard time engaging with it because Bo-Katan, we know what happens to her. Ahsoka, we know what happens to her. Rex, we know what happens to him. And, like, we got more pieces to
There's no
fill
stakes.
in the gap.
Yeah.
We know what happens to Maul. I think it's a case of it was nice to see how it unfolded. But this wasn't a thing where I was questioning how it unfolded. Like the prequel trilogy. It's the prequel trilogy, the information we had on the events of Anakin and Obi-Wan and Anakin's fall are very ambiguous. The Siege of Mandalore doesn't really have to be, because it's very clear that the Empire ended up in control, and we know where Bo-Katan, Ahsoka, Rex, and Maul ended up. They ended up completely different places. And I think that's unfortunate because that arc has some really good moments. As Sonata said, the dialogue is so good and fun, and the fact that they opted to do a mocap fight for
Oh,
that duel is also great.
I forgot that was mocap.
yep.
Uh,
They brought
yeah.
back Ray Park for it too.
Yep.
Mhm.
And so I think it's just when they decided to release it, I'm like, man, this is great. But Rex kind of already told me that he got his chip removed.
Yeah.
I think
It
the
was.
reason why it's. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. No,
Okay.
go ahead.
The
This
reason
is
why
your
it's definitely one of
subject.
my things is because I didn't watch. I had watched the Clone Wars as a kid, but I didn't like actually pay attention to the Clone Wars and watch the Clone Wars until I was my junior year in high school. And so I watched it all at once, and season 7 was there. And then after that, I watched Rebels because I didn't know what the hell was going to happen to Ahsoka and Rex and Bo-Katan. I didn't know because I wasn't like super in depth into anything that had happened really with any of those characters during the Age of the Empire. Um, and so I was 110% invested because I didn't know where they were going to end up. And so seeing where they ended up in Rebels was nice.
Yeah, I wish I would have been able to have that perspective and feel a bit more attached to the Siege of Mandalore, because that's what I noticed as I was watching it was like after the actual fight on Mandalore, like I was pretty engaged with that. After that, I was kind of just like, I think I know how it goes from here.
Mm.
Like, that's unfortunate, but yeah, I think really that probably comes down to just the actual development of the Clone Wars and the fact that when Filoni started doing Rebels, he was probably like, "Yeah, I'm not gonna get to do the ending of the Clone Wars the way I wanted it to, so I'll just continue everything I wanted here, allude to it. We have the Ahsoka novel to fill in the details, of which Dave Filoni changed a bunch of anyway. Whatever. Well, um, so yeah." And that's not to detract from you finding it enjoyable. It's just I had to
Yeah.
get my hot take in for the day of
No,
like
it's
I
just
wish I could feel that for it.
yeah, it is the consequence of the show coming out in parts and one of those parts being way later than everything else,
And I
which
suppose
is
for me,
unfortunate.
it was just a matter of like whenever I watch a piece of media, like I try very hard to pull myself into the moment of that media and not think about what happens before or after that point, purely for the sake of like I want to experience this in the moment without
Mm.
future or past information influencing me too much. So I kind of just shut that part of my brain off, which could be argued as a strength, could also be argued as a flaw.
Yeah, as I say, I can't do that. I'm like if I'm ever worried about the outcome of a character, and it's just like, oh, are they gonna die? Oh wait, they can't die here. It's like,
Yeah. It's it's
um,
the it's the Anakin can't meet Scott General Grievous until Revenge of the Sith. It's just those kind of contrivances where you're like, "Oh, yeah, that's why that character didn't die here because they show up later on."
yeah, I find it rare where there's no stakes in a movie and I still engage with it emotionally like that, or movie, TV show, or whatever. Um, like I think Revenge of the Sith is probably the only time where that's the exception, where like the prequels are kind of for some reason, um, I can still be like, yeah, even though you know what's gonna happen, I can still feel the intensity of it, and I think it's because it's the gap. But there's 20 years between the movies, where it's like, okay, if you were to sit down and watch Revenge of the Sith, obviously you know that Vader and Anakin, it's just not quite that much. It's only like 15 years, and the characters are like especially Bo-Katan and Mandalore is like, well, So they mentioned the Siege of Mandalore. The Empire now controls Mandalore, albeit indirectly. I can guess how that one happened. Um, it also might be the factor of yeah, when I was growing up, the prequels were coming out.
Yeah.
So maybe that's part of it. But yes, we've talked about this long enough. Donovan, favorite Star Wars character? Go.
Darth Maul.
Skeletor.
No.
He has this awesome introduction in Phantom Menace, and then for very good storytelling reasons, whatever potential he had was lost because the good guys needed to win that movie. He kind of needed to die. So, but then him being brought back in Clone Wars kind of just creates a character who's already had his character arc has already hit its climax. He's on the downward spiral, baby, and he chose the path. And every time he's given the option to stop on this path, he keeps choosing the path he's on, where he inflicts on everyone around him the same thing that he's trying to get revenge against. Because he's mad at Palpatine for using him and abandoning him. He's mad at Kenobi for winning in a duel and doing to him what Maul would have done to Kenobi. And it's just, he's mad at Palpatine for using him like a tool. Well, he's using his brother like a tool. He uses Ezra as a tool. And it's just this downward spiral compared with the upward trajectory of Obi-Wan. It's just a compelling character for me.
I knew I was ahead of the game when I was talking about that duel.
Yeah.
And their characters. I knew it.
There's a line here in my notes. It's less accurate to say that Maul has issues, and more accurate to say that he is a collection of issues in the shape of a Dathomirian Zabrak.
Honestly, yeah. Yeah, no, Maul's fun. And generally, I'm not for resurrecting characters. I'm glad they did. That's one that has definitely been resurrected and then killed for the better.
I too very much enjoyed Maul's resurrection because at the time, when they did it, like when they announced that was happening, I was like, wait, they're actually bringing this character back that they didn't touch up upon? Gee, I wonder how they're going to like squander any potential he may have. And then I turned out to be very happily mistaken.
Yeah.
Because I fully expected for them to not do it very well.
Well, technically speaking, he doesn't have any potential. He has the opposite of potential.
Yes. I think part of why I love him so much is because, like, the arcs that we see him in, he is the protagonist of those arcs. Maul Returns, that's Maul and Savage. Those are the heroes. Shadow Collective, again, Maul and Savage are the heroes of those arcs. Like, those arcs are about them. I guess protagonist is the more accurate choice, because they are by no means heroes. But again, I love watching protagonists fail. He builds up to this grand plan of using all these criminal syndicates to take Mandalore, and then use Mandalore to fight the Empire that he knows is coming, and try to combat his old master. And then his master just waltzes in and says, nice place you got here. Shame if I put some lightning in it. And he fails. And he fails again and again and again until he fails to learn the lesson of Naboo. Which is apparently don't fuck with Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God. I love Darth Maul. He's great. He's just a silly little goober.
Yeah. Justice, you're up.
Ah, all right. So I have one. I have an honorable mention. Number one is cliche. I'm a Luke Skywalker enjoyer.
Nerd.
But I can put the crazy twist on it that I do not exclude Episode 8 Luke Skywalker from my Luke Skywalker enjoyment.
Base.
Luke Skywalker's entire character arc I enjoy a lot because you see, as I touched on earlier, you have the sort of kind of cliche hero in the first movie that all turned against him, and then we start to see in Return of the Jedi what like a full-fledged Jedi could look like. You know, he's got this new air of confidence about him, but he is so certain of winning, and it almost comes to bite him again. You know, he almost dies, but he's great. And Luke's always been a bit of a full of himself character, as we talked about, and so it really gets to him. That's where Episode 8 comes from. Is he got a little too full of himself, and that's why he's in the state he's in, because he failed. The man who talked down Darth Vader couldn't turn somebody else away. And I mean, he took a bit of a vacation, and he came back with his you can't call it a lightsaber duel because their blades never touch, but him just matrixing Kylo Ren for a solid 2 minutes was really fun, and it's probably like the most Jedi way to handle a fight is to not fight. And so yes, Luke Skywalker is my pick. However, generally I'm not crazy for Legends. My honorable pick goes to the KOTOR 2 antagonist Kreia, because Kreia pulls this fucking awesome perspective of, I hate the Force for having its own will, and I want it to die. She tries, as you play through the game, to deliver you with this survival of the fittest, don't help people because you're taking their struggle away from them kind of ideology. And when you get her as a party member for the first time, she has this sort of gray alignment. It leans a little dark, a little, but she doesn't seem outright evil. And as you play more and more, you realize, oh, she may not have the traditional Sith goal of, oh, look at me, I want to rule the galaxy. But she fell into the dark side trap all the same. She is still a Darksider. So at the end of the game, she still has the title of Darth when you finally take her down. She's very fun. She alone makes that game worth playing, I think. Let alone the 1,000 other things, excluding the 1,000 other bugs. But yes, those are my 2 picks.
Apathy is death.
Apathy is death.
I would point out, slight correction. It's not that she hates that the Force has a will, it's that the Force inflicts that will on other people.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to summarize, because
gross
we're getting close on
oversimplification.
time.
We're getting close on time, yeah.
Yeah, very.
Oh, that means it's my turn.
Yeah, go, Mary,
Yeah.
go.
Okay. Honorable mention, Eli Vanto. I haven't finished the Thrawn trilogy. I am reading Thrawn Treason right now. But I love Eli Vanto. He's just a little guy going through the galaxy trying to get Thrawn out of so much trouble. I love him. He's a goober. But my actual favorite character in all of Star Wars is Rey Skywalker. Unapologetically. I love Rey Skywalker. From the beginning, with her musical theme, we find out the type of person she is. She is this person that's full of hope and a genuine optimistic outlook on the galaxy with with her music theme. And then we get into her character and we see that that doesn't change. She has her trials and tribulations, and she definitely has some moments where she's not great. But overall, I feel like Rey is an optimistic person, and yet she's very similar to Luke in that respect, but she has that same character flaw of his arrogance. And she also has the character flaw of believing that her family matters because it doesn't. And yeah, she ends up being like Rey Skywalker, whatever, at the end of the movie, but she goes from her character arc from I need to know who my family is because I feel like that is such an integral part of my identity that I need to know who they actually were to my family is the people that I love and the people that chose me and I chose them. Um and that's like I mean, I'm a sucker for found family and that's like one of my favorite things. And I also just as an AFAB person, assigned female at birth person, watching a female Jedi on screen take the lead in a Star Wars trilogy as an 11-year-old, I was like, holy shit. That was something that really inspired me. Of course, there had been powerful women in Star Wars previously. There was Padme, Mon Mothma, and Leia, but none to the degree of Rey. And so, kind of watching that and being able to see that sort of I don't want to say representation, but like being able to put myself into the shoes of that character much easier than I would be able to a male character um was really really nice, at least for me. And I know that not everybody can relate to that one, but you know, it's still really cool. And I will fight people all day on because people are like, "Oh, Raisin Mary Sue." She's not. Just look at the cave scene in episode 8. Just that's like my case in point. No, she's please God, no, please stop saying that. You're just wrong. Uh, but I love Rey Skywalker. She also has the best outfits in the sequel trilogy, and I love her darker outfit in The Last Jedi, kind of mirroring how Luke's outfit was black in Return of the Jedi. And also, yellow lightsaber, twisty hilt, badass. All I gotta say. I will conclude my thoughts there. I love Rey. She's awesome.
I can already hear the people typing in the comments.
Oh yeah,
God, yeah.
Bold of you to assume we're gonna get comments.
Marin and I had a because I knew that was Marin's pick.
I do as well.
We had a conversation about hey, you might as well weed them out early, you know.
Exactly.
no. I love Rey, and being an AFAB person and just being able to relate to Rey is really cool. I love her. She's awesome. She's great.
I love her
Defend her till my
theme,
dying day.
and by her
Oh
theme,
God.
I just mean the Emperor's theme in 4 times speed.
No, I honestly think there are like 2 music themes out of the sequel trilogy that are really, really good, and that's March of the Resistance and Rey's theme.
I'm doing
Those
my
are
boy
definitely my
Kylo
favorite.
Ren dirty.
I don't really like Kylo Ren's theme,
All
honestly.
right. Sonata, your favorite character. I don't want to hear any
Yes, go.
noises.
All right, so this was a really difficult thing to pick, and in the end, it went to a tie. So, up first, we have Darth Vader, one of the most iconic villains ever. And I think you can all guess who the contender is.
I
Mr.
swear to
Blue
God, you
Boy.
say Anakin Skywalker as that would have been the funny thing to do because I would have gotten really mad at you. But
So, the reason why Darth Vader is held in such high regard by me is because he's an excellent example as to what happens when you take a person who in their childhood had nothing and then place them upon what is essentially a pedestal and deliver a kind of pressure upon them that realistically no person could really ever bear without help. And then you take away everything that meant something to him, of course he's going to become a monster. And us getting to witness his fall from basically his childhood up to his redemption is, in my opinion, just one of the best redemption stories out of like all of them. Because it's just like, yeah, Vader did awful things, but in the end he died the man he in the end he died as the man he wanted to be as opposed to what he was forced to be. And then we have the blueberry.
Max Rebo.
Aralani.
I do love her
Deep
a lot.
fried Max Rebo.
But with Grand Admiral Thrawn, he was just the first villain I was introduced to of whose competence actually terrified me. Because up until like the OG Thrawn trilogy, we never had an Imperial that I considered to be that much of a threat. Like, excluding Vader and the Emperor, of course, none of them were really that scary until Thrawn came along. And with his reintroduction in the canon, he's still spooky, but at least now, like, he's far more likable and far more honorable as a character, to the point where when the Ahsoka show comes, I don't know who I'm going to vouch for more, Ahsoka or Thrawn. Like, I love them both. I can't tell you who I want to win.
I will ask, which one of these people orbitally bombarded an entire city of live inhabitants just to prove a point?
Me, I did.
In canon, Thrawn. In Legends, Vader, if I recall correctly.
I'm talking about
Legends
Lothal.
both.
Well, Thrawn isn't exactly a good guy. I feel like you're giving Thrawn the Dooku treatment here, or you're making him seem a little better than he is. But no, that's we're not gonna. We've spent so much time. We're not going to get into the nitty gritty of characters' moral alignments. Thrawn is
Of
fucking
course.
cool. I love that he has nuance, though. He is a very
he's one
fun
of-
character.
Yeah, he's one of the few villains in Star Wars that aren't the pure evil archetype.
Yeah. I know when Zahn set out to write him in the 90s, he was like, yeah, I want to see an Imperial that isn't ruling through fear. I want to create somebody who's smart and actually competent. And he did it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Thrawn's got a bit of a superpower when it comes to art, but yeah, no, Thrawn is definitely really fun. I do believe. Sorry, go ahead, Marin.
No, I just wanted to say, it's very interesting that, Sonata, you brought up specifically Vader and Thrawn, because seeing the two of them interact in Thrawn alliances is so good, and seeing them play off of each other, beautiful, chef's kiss, amazing. Thrawn is great.
Why do you think Alliances is my favorite book?
That's
no, I do believe I'm out of questions. And we have spoken for a solid 2 hours and approximately 10 minutes. So, welcome to the shit show. I hope you guys enjoyed and gotten to know us a little better. We will have something completely off the cuff and random, or maybe not random, and pertaining to whatever's going on in current events for next week. However, this concludes episode 1, introductions. Thank you all for watching, listening. If you made it this far, God save you. Bye.
Bye!
See ya.
Bye bye.